viewers at home, welcome back to the Creative Constitution podcast with your hosts, Deborah Tamai,
Jazz Sebastian.
Yeah,
Beat to it.
Yep, 100%. Okay, and today we will be discussing the pressures of being on set in a film.
And dealing with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a film, not a theatre production, just film specifically. The pressures of being on set are both in independent, indie, smaller films, maybe student films. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
And we can also talk about the pressures of being on set in a larger scale film.
Exactly.
That is actually a paid bigger one from our personal experiences and also the perception of being right next to big actors on big films as well. Just as little extras, but from absorbing their experiences, we're able to give some insight also, I feel. So let's talk about that.
Exactly. Sounds great.
Let's get started. I'd really like to know first,
Yeah.
Deborah Tamai, as an actress, director extraordinaire, you've been on a fair few independent films now.
Yeah.
You've really built your reputation up quickly there. What does it feel like? Say the last independent, smaller budget film that you did.
Yeah.
What is the pressure like now going on to something like that compared to your first one? How did it feel back then? How does it feel now?
Very good question. So a little bit of context. I had my first real on-set experience for a big budget film only about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And that was called Black Site, directed by Sophia Banks. And it was really, really cool. I got to see Michelle Monaghan on set, and it was just a really, really cool experience. And that one really, honestly, was something that I bagged probably out of luck. I just spoke the right language, was looking at things at the right time. I literally just got that on social media after seeing a casting call for it and applied. Literally got it after an audition, and I was like, whoa, is acting this easy? But anyways, I got onto set, and to be honest, it was such a cool experience, but it was also very different to my independent film experience too. So independent films, you and I have both done a few different short films, mostly for small, tiny budgets, usually university short films.
Micro budget.
I think actually low budget is still $250,000 or less. So sometimes that skews the statistics. But I mean, the films that we've done, they're probably less than $5,000 budget.
Yeah.
But it was a really different experience, but also same in a way too.
Okay.
So with the independent films, when we were doing the short films, I personally didn't really feel that much set pressure. For example, Boy on the Radio, directed by 𝐵𝐔𝐿. We had a great time with him.
Yes.
And I definitely felt not really a lot of set pressure. I think I was just a little nervous on the first couple days because those are really when you create your character, and whatever you do on that first day is what sets the tone. So I think in a way that was where the pressure came from. It wasn't necessarily delivering the lines a certain way because you knew that you probably would get to do it again, and there was a bit of flexibility there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was more people were arriving at different times.
Yeah.
The crew cobbled together sort of here and there.
It feels more casual and friendly.
Figuring it out as we were going along.
Yeah, and I think it's because partly you don't have the pressure of having to make a ton of money with this film.
Yeah.
When you're at those bigger levels, people are counting dollars because
every 5 minutes is another 10 grand that you have to pay everyone to be there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
so
why
it's a different world of pressure.
Matt Damon famously said in one of his interviews, he said that Clint Eastwood literally was we're not doing more than one take and I think he was filming that rugby movie, I forget the name, where he plays that's the South African rugby player,
Invincible or something.
Yeah, something like that, and it was the first day of filming Invictus.
Yeah.
So they were filming Invictus, and they were filming the scene, and it was the first day. Matt Damon did his lines and whatever. And then he went up to Clint Eastwood and he's like, yeah, man, I feel like we should just do that again. Let's just give it one more shot. And then Clint Eastwood was like, you want to waste everyone's time? we're not doing that again, you know? And then, and I think that rings really true. And I totally felt that when I was on Black Site. Like, it's so weird because on short films, you're like, oh, you know, literally, I don't know how it happens, but it feels like you just constantly have long as hell days. Like, it's just never ending, you know? Like, you get on set at like 8 a.m. and you're not going home until 2 a.m. and you only film like 3 scenes. Like, even though the big budget ones feel like that as well.
Well, because the crew dick around in the smaller budget student films, they're all still learning and they don't have a plan.
That's true.
So you could do 3 or 4 great takes and then the person goes, oh, I got the little bit out of focus. Or no, that's the take. Use that one.
That's a separate conversation.
That's a separate okay. Okay, sorry.
But you know, when you're on those short films, it feels like everything is such a monumental task, you know, because things take so long and whatever. But when you're on a bigger set, I think I saw this very much with Elvis
as well,
and another production that I can't talk about yet. Okay. But a big Disney one.
Yeah.
And that one was just like, it was like shot after shot after shot, like very structured.
Like the setup is long.
Yeah.
But then once they start going, it's just like,
and it's just, and it's
belt.
like literally conveyor belt. Exactly. Yeah. And if the actors don't perform, I think like that's where like the pressure really comes in because they've got all these people. They're paying for like hundreds of people, you know, every hour. That's like huge bills on the production.
Yeah.
So to be held back by like a person forgetting a line or something, like you sometimes can feel the energy. Like it is a bit different. So for example, on Black Site, it took like, I was on set from like 10 p.m. and I didn't get to shoot my scenes until like 3 a.m. So during that time, obviously you start to get a little bit nervous because you're like, oh man, I really hope I don't like mess this up.
You've already gone through mental exhaustion and being pumped and then exhausted again by the time you shoot.
Exactly. But then by the time that I got onto set, it kind of felt like a short film because it was no different. You just had like a bigger crew. But really, like the moment they called action, I kind of felt like I was in my zone already, and I had enough experience like backing me in that state. But at the same time, it was like I need to perform. Like the pressure was intense, but at the same time, I like didn't really feel intense because
you were chill.
I was like happy to be there as well.
Yeah.
And really, I felt like Black Site was a bit of a short film, just with a much bigger budget and much more experienced people involved. So then you kind of feel like you've got a bit of a safety net there too.
Yeah.
But honestly, I did my first take and I was pretty happy with it, like personally, and the director was happy with it too.
Best
and
part
after
of the
that,
film, I think.
And thanks. But then after that, the pressure just went away.
Yeah.
Because I got the first take was good. If my first take was bad, I think that then I would have probably gone downhill from there.
Yeah.
Because the pressure is intense.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all these cameras are there, and they're huge cameras. Like they're not like sometimes the cameras you see on short films.
Yeah.
They're these huge things. All of a sudden, you got massive lights, you know, turned towards you. You got all these people in the back, like watching, taking notes. You know, they've all got their like little like microphones and whatever.
Pretending
headsets.
like they're all like super important.
They're all
something.
like dressed like spies, and they're all with like shorts and like 5,000 like tapes,
gadgets on their belt, like the friggin' waterproof hiking boots on, like.
And then someone told me that like the cameraman was like really famous, and I was like, oh god, you know, like.
And they're literally just there to like write a note in a book every time, or like get someone's coffee, and they're dressed up. Like.
But it was really interesting because like there was a lot of pressure, and like thankfully I didn't like F it up.
Yeah.
And I think from there the set pressure was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, short films I think. Really similar in a way, but there's just more fun. Like it's a playful experience. I mean, I bet you know that as well.
Yeah. Look, some are, and some are exhausting, terrible, pointless endeavors that you give so much to and get absolutely nothing back. But yeah, I've had a couple of short films that were incredibly enjoyable. One was like a comedy that on paper, I was kind of thinking twice before I did it. I was sort of like, oh, am I going to do this? It sounds a bit weird. Like, it's either going to be okay or it's going to be...
Sometimes,
it's going to be cringe.
Yeah, try.
Ended up being one of the best short films I've done and the best experiences. And I just had to drive a fair way to do it. But the guys I met were awesome. They were really talented. And it shouldn't have worked. Like on paper, it just like, really, how is this going to work? But I watched it back. It's one of the only cool sort of comedy, action-y things that I can actually show people and be proud of from a student film, like an independent student.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes long.
But did you feel pressure when you were on set?
A little bit, yeah.
Where did the pressure come from?
I think the pressure came from the nervousness in having to travel so far to get there. And so I knew that every drive there and back was like an adventure on its own.
Yeah, okay.
And so when I got there, it was like, oh, I've come all this way. Jesus, I better be on it.
Yeah.
I better not be boring or forget what I'm doing every 5 minutes. I didn't really forget what I was doing because they were a great team to work with. And it wasn't like massive monologues of dialogue. So we all just sort of did it as we went and figured it out as we went along.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was a really cool, really fun, quite a rewarding experience.
I think the set pressure in a way comes from our own thoughts, like of like things that are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think a big thing that puts pressure on myself is like, I want to make sure that the character that I create on day one is good. Because like, if it's not, then one, it might look bad for me as an actor and what I leave as a legacy. Even if I never make it to Hollywood, I want to make sure that what I've participated in is as best as possible. So if I rock up on day one and I forget lines or whatever, one, that's going to impact my reputation as an actress. But I want that when the cameras are rolling and by the end of the day they have what they need, because the directors are, typically going to accept like what you give them, even with some direction and stuff. But really what you're creating this entity. And if that entity is not really like what you want to carry throughout the whole film, then that's where my pressure comes from. And maybe that's like lack of experience at this point. But I think I want to be able to go onto set that first day, and the moment that they call action, I already have a really good thing that I can build over the course of the production. And if I don't get to do that, then the pressure just builds and builds and builds because maybe I'm not prepared enough or like I don't know my lines enough.
That's
but these might just
interesting.
be like fake things that I've put in my head, but that's what makes my set pressure come. Well, that's where the set pressure comes from for me.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily being like pointed at with all these cameras. I actually really love that.
Yeah,
it's probably like strokes my ego a little.
That sort of builds the power, right? And again, it's the same as we've mentioned in an earlier podcast about sort of going onto stage and that feeling. It's like, okay, I do have all this money and all these people riding on me being good and not buggering this up. And some people can choose to shrink or freak out, which everyone sort of does in a way. But if you're confident in your own abilities, it's more just like a hit. It's like a drug high. It's like, ooh, this is power, baby. All right, now the weight of the world rests on my shoulders. Let's not let these people down. Yeah. And then you bang. Yeah. So it's a thrill.
Exactly. I think that's what got me through Black Site, because I arrived and I knew I was a good actress.
Yes.
And I literally did my pep talk and I was like, I'm a great actress. I'm going to do a great job. I'm going to impress everybody. And then, they called action. I did my thing. I did like whatever the instructions were. I knew my lines, and I gave the performance and the pressure just like fizzled away. But like before then, obviously you feel nervous and stuff. But if you believe that you are good, I think that's a great way to handle the pressure.
Yeah, of the big sets.
Oh, yeah. Even the small sets, if you get nervous,
And to interject quickly, I think more pressure from what we're saying, from what you're telling me and from what I'm sort of going over in my own mind now and reflecting on after saying it, it seems like more pressure could equal less pressure on set.
What?
Because the more pressure that is on the set, like the bigger the set, the more agency you've got on that set, the more that is riding on your shoulders, the less pressure. Because you are going into it more prepared. You are going into it knowing that you can't let all these people down. So it's like more pressure in a way is setting you up to succeed. Whereas less pressure, say on an independent film that sort of hasn't been thought out too well, that's a bit all over the shop, the director doesn't really have a plan and is just making up things as they go, maybe that feels like it's more pressure because you're not sure whether you're going to regret what you see back because you have no pressure on you. It's like there's no pressure, so there's more pressure because you have no assistance to be great because there's no plan and it's unorganized or it's amateur in this regard or this regard. So in a way, you're like, oh God, I have less control. Like these elements aren't working with me. They're working just all over the place. So it's my job now to try and salvage this. There's more pressure on me as just the actor to try and somehow make this good so that I can watch it back and not regret my own performance. And that's more pressure to take on in a way.
Yeah, it's actually such a good point because normally I would like almost reverse that and like say that there's way more pressure in the big ones and less pressure in the small ones. But now that you say that,
there's more pressure on us.
It's actually crazy because, all right, so the way I see it is like a short film, you have essentially the ability to create whatever performance you want. A lot of the time, the directors, like they have ideas of what they want, but they don't really have the guidance of like 1,000 executives and all these other people on set that might have guided the process of getting from rehearsals all the way to film date. Sometimes you get a role and shoot date is like 3 days down the it's like next Wednesday, that happens a lot. And so I think in a way like that actually has way more pressure because you have less time to prepare. You get onto set and sometimes there's no rehearsals at all. And really sometimes you're creating this thing that you might not have fully fleshed out. So then when the movie comes out, you're like, oh man, I could have done a better job. But now your reputation rests on what you've just done in those films that maybe you were not experienced in. You didn't really know your lines because you had like 2 days to practice.
Yep.
That's actually so crazy.
And also, because a lot of these things are unpaid and they're just shoot when everyone's free, you could be shooting another scene as that character in a month and a half.
Ah, yeah.
And I don't remember what I did. Like the director doesn't. They don't give a poo. They're sort of all over the place. Yeah. There's no continuity person. There's no person to get your head back into the space of that character. So you've moved on. You've done 3 other projects since then. So you could come back to this other film and your voice is different as the character now, or it's been a week and you've been doing other things and been different characters, and then you've come back to this thing that you're not really getting paid for. There's no structure. It's all over the place. Yeah. And so even more pressure because it's like, oh man, damn, it looks like it's my bad now. It looks like it's my bad.
Yeah, because someone goes, oh yeah, that was a shitty actor.
Yeah, why are they different at every... It's because it's shot like months apart. And
spot on.
So more pressure again.
So then with the bigger ones, I think, just the fact that you've been chosen to play that part in a bigger budget, I think that should be reason enough to not have any pressure at all. Yeah. Because people want you to succeed. And they don't want to spend lots of dollars on like new takes. So like you've been chosen for a reason. Yeah. You smashed your audition. You probably had a rehearsal time. And if you didn't, then you can still rest on the idea that the director looked at your tape, they liked what you did, and the casting director loves you and they want to work with you.
They want you to make their money and be amazing.
They want you to come onto set and have a great time and give it your all. But like, really, yeah, you're right. There's actually sometimes less pressure. Well, you just flipped my brain.
More pressure equals less pressure.
Who knew like crazy physics concepts could work? But okay,
soft taco, hard taco. What?
So now let's chat about kind of being an extra. So many actors start off being extras. And obviously as an extra, you don't really feel set pressure because you're not the billable actors, the ones that are, the production rests on their shoulders.
But again,
what is that?
Maybe in this case, it's less to no pressure equals a lot more pressure.
How so?
Well, let's have a look at extras in films. Do you ever analyze and look at all the extras and what they're doing in the back of all these films? I do all the time now. Since being an extra, I haven't stopped. And they're cringe and they're terrible. Sometimes they're fine. A noticeable
Less
extra...
is more for extras.
A noticeable extra is a bad extra. An extra that's doing nothing, as boring as bat poo, is a good extra. And so, as an extra, I actually recently, we were on the set, like a year ago now or something, I was on the set of Darby and Joan, which was a Australian series filmed here with some notable Australian talent, and that was a really good time. You were on that project for a while as well, and we met some good friends on that are doing really well now in Australian acting.
I think as a side note, I was an extra in one of the scenes, and I think I folded a towel like probably 90 times.
Yeah. But what if you folded that towel and as you were folding it, you actually accidentally dropped it in the puddle and went and looked over at the camera while what's-his-name's doing his final, most epic scene where they find the child and rescue him and the mother comes over crying.
Yeah. Then
and that's in the scene. That's a lot of pressure, girlie.
Oh my God.
I tell you, you've screwed that up. And all these actors are angry, the crew's angry. That's actually a lot of pressure. So you think there's no pressure being an extra, but it's actually, it's more pressure.
Yeah.
I think.
I've seen the crew actually cut on a scene because extras were not performing right.
Or they looked at the wrong spot or something, or it's unnatural while these actors are doing their thing. And it could be the best take. And this fella down there that's meant to be picking mushrooms trips over or go, oh shit, sorry, and looks over at the crew.
Yeah.
And that was the best take. That was the one.
You could get like kicked off sets and then you kind of get like a little red flag on your name.
Yeah, it's scary, man.
Oh, God.
There's a lot of pressure being extra. It's extra pressure.
Extra pressure.
Looking down on me, looking down on you. Mm-hmm. Extra pressure. Sorry, Spotify listeners. It's probably quite painful for you right now, but hey, if you come and watch this episode on YouTube, it's a lot more entertaining. So check us out on YouTube, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's so spot on actually. But I actually do think though, watching as an extra, the main characters, I think there must be a lot of pressure for them, especially when you have like you're a series regular or you're the top actor or something. I actually think that there would be immense pressure to make sure that you get your scene right. I don't know about I only really can speak from personal experience. My role on the big film that I did, very small. So maybe the pressure is like relative to your role size. I don't know. But from having watched Austin perform on Elvis and watched Darby and Joan and a few other films as well, I can just I just imagine.
You can feel it.
I think I can imagine how it would feel on day one, but then after that they get used to it. You know, the crew they're all like high-fiving each other, you know, it becomes a family.
Yeah.
But when does that become a family affair and it's no longer high-pressure environment? I don't really know.
Yeah, how far into to shooting?
Is it day 2, day 3, day 5, day 20? You know, because by the time that I was on Elvis, I think it was like the last week or last couple weeks of filming. So at that point, everyone was like high-fiving each other. And in between takes, they would be kind of, really happy with each other. Baz would walk over and just like be his like cool self. I don't know, it felt good. You know, didn't feel like there was pressure. So that's maybe a good thing too, relative to maybe role size and maybe the time at which the performances are happening.
I think there's always going to be a lot of pressure on the main roles, of course, the money makers, the people that have been bet on to make this thing a success, to sell tickets in the cinemas or to get those streams every week on the Netflix or the binge or something to make sure those viewers tune in. Yeah. There's always going to be a massive amount of pressure in a sense, but yeah. I think for sure there's a time where there no longer is, and it becomes a powerful feeding off positive energy and winning, that sort of thing. Whereas something that's a lot more unprofessional, you may never get to that stage. You may wrap the production and never get to that stage.
That's true.
So more pressure, less pressure, less pressure, more pressure sometimes. Depends on the situation, and it depends on the time that you've been involved with the project.
Yeah, 100%.
Like a lot of day players come in, or maybe people that have great roles on a film or a guest appearance, and maybe they only have one scene, and maybe they've rehearsed this for a couple of months. Yeah. And they've got a one scene thing in a big film next to a big name.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a big thing they should feel empowered with, but maybe in that case, there's just a lot of pressure because they only get the one and done.
Yeah.
Whereas the main actor in that film's got a long time and they're going to be on set for months and months working at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting points.
Yeah, that's right. I think it really is. I think it's an empowering thing. There's nothing like a film set. You know, a film set is just a beautiful place where all these people are coming together to make this amazing creative project. And if you're feeling pressure, that's actually a good thing. That means you care. It means it's worth something in your emotional, juices.
In your emotional damage.
But I think it means something. Like, the pressure is good.
Yeah.
I actually do think that it's an empowering thing, and I think it'll help you shine.
Yeah.
I think a really great way to tackle the pressure is knowing that if you got that role and you're going to be making an appearance, whether it's large or small, on a movie set, you've been chosen, you've been selected, and make the most of that opportunity. But if you mess up, I think everyone will be fine to do another take. So don't let it build up too much and tackle those sets, baby. You can handle that pressure.
You can do it.
This. You got this.
You got this.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next one.